Hello, Sarah Hewin here from Standard Chartered's Global Research Team. The Irish government has just announced its four-year medium-term programme, which aims at reducing the deficit down from close to 12% of GDP this year to below the 3% of GDP Maastricht target. They've outlined substantial spending cuts, and they'll be raising revenue as well to meet this requirement, which is something which the EU and IMF require before the bailout package can be agreed. So where do we go from here? Well, the next stage for Ireland is that the 2011 budget needs to be passed. That's going to be presented to Parliament on the 7th of December, and will aim at cutting €6 billion in overall sort of spending and revenue-raising measures. Once this has been agreed, the Irish government will be dissolved and new elections will be called in 2011, in January probably. And the hope is that by passing the budget, the EU bailout package totalling around about €85 billion will be agreed. But there are still several areas of uncertainty. First of all, on the political side, although the opposition parties broadly support the move to reduce the deficit down in line with what the government is outlining, they're pressing for early elections, and it's not clear whether the 2011 budget, in fact, will be able to be passed. Another uncertainty is whether the EU bailout programme, in fact, will be sufficient to stabilise markets, given clear contagion risks surrounding other countries in the euro area, in particular Portugal and Spain. So it may be that even once the bailout is announced and finance provided for the government, finance provided to support Ireland's banking sector, that spreads on Portuguese debt remain high and that Spanish bond yields rise further. For Portugal, fundamentals suggest that they shouldn't need to access the EU bailout fund. They have agreed at budget cuts which will take the deficit down to 4.3% of GDP in 2011. They don't have the banking sector and housing sector problems that face Ireland, and they are proceeding with policy. But they do face some substantial debt rollover needs in the early months of 2011. And so if market sentiment remains poor, then the risk is that the cost of borrowing for Portugal will be excessively high, and that in time they too will have to access the EU bailout fund. Spain is also a different category. They have substantially lower levels of debt. The budget deficit is set to fall to 6% of GDP in 2011, but there are several uncertainties, in particular relating to the property bust in Spain and the impact that that may have on the banks, in turn the contingent liabilities that the Spanish government may face. So risks also that Spain may end up having to access the bailout fund. Our view is that that's a relatively low risk, but it's certainly one that markets should bear in mind.